Right now, somewhere in your life, there is a task you are avoiding. You know exactly what it is. You have probably opened an app to help you do it. A timer, a checklist, a matrix with 4 boxes, and for a moment it worked. But the real answer to why these systems exist and why they took over the modern world is far stranger than an app store category. It starts almost 300,000 years ago, not with a to-do list, with a choice your species made without knowing it was making one. For most of evolutionary history, strength decided survival. The strongest hunter ate first. The strongest defender protected the group. But somewhere in the long stretch of human prehistory, something shifted. Early humans began to understand that intelligence was a more reliable weapon than muscle. A spear thrown with calculation killed more efficiently than brute force alone. A trap set with foresight fed a family without a single confrontation. Strength could fail in a single encounter. Intelligence compounded. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar has spent decades studying how this shift reshaped the human brain itself. His research suggests that the demands of social and strategic thinking, not raw survival tasks, were what drove the dramatic expansion of the human neocortex. Thinking became the advantage, and once a trait becomes the advantage, evolution does not let it go. So thinking about new ideas stopped being a luxury, it became survival currency. And for a small but critical group of early humans, generating new ideas became the most important task they could perform for the group. Not the strongest, not the fastest, the ones who could look at the world and imagine something different than what already existed. But here is where it gets interesting. These early strategic thinkers did not just solve problems in front of them. They started observing patterns, watching the migration of animals across seasons, tracking which berries caused sickness and which did not over years, not days. They began optimizing their environment for advantages that would not pay off for a long time, sometimes choosing a path with an immediate cost, in exchange for a benefit that would not arrive for months or even years. This is, quite literally, the first appearance of delayed gratification in the human story, and it came with a cost, because investing in the future means sacrificing comfort in the present. It means walking past food today to plant a crop that will not feed you until next season. It means resisting the urge to rest in service of a goal you cannot yet see. And as these strategic thinkers watched their communities more closely, they noticed something uncomfortable. Not everyone could do this. A significant portion of any group struggled to find a personal reason to push toward long-term goals. They were not lazy in the way the word gets used today. They were simply not wired to chase a reward that did not yet exist. Psychologists now describe this as a mismatch between present bias and long-term planning, and it shows up in nearly every human population studied. Behavioral economist Shane Frederick, working alongside Nobel laureate George Lowenstein, documented just how strongly humans discount future rewards in favor of smaller, immediate ones. It is not a flaw unique to the modern world. It is a baseline feature of the human mind. This created a problem for the early strategists. They could see the advantage of long-term thinking clearly, but they could not simply hand that vision to everyone else. Telling someone to be more motivated did not work then, and it does not work now. Motivation is an emotional state, it rises and falls. It cannot be manufactured through willpower alone, and a colony that depended on willpower alone would eventually fail. So the thinkers tried something different. Instead of asking people to feel motivated, they began building systems that made the correct action feel logically unavoidable. Structures that did not require emotional buy-in to function. This is the moment the modern productivity technique was born, even though it would take thousands of years and several rebranded names to arrive in your phone. Because here is the pattern that repeats across nearly every productivity method you have ever used. It was never really designed to inspire you. It was designed to bypass the part of your brain that needs inspiration in the first place. Take the Pomodoro technique. Developed by Francesco Cirillo in the late 1980s, it asks you to work for 25 minutes, then rest for 5. On the surface, it looks simple, but the logic underneath is precise. 25 minutes is short enough that your brain does not activate its avoidance response, the same neural mechanism that makes an unbounded task feel overwhelming. You are not committing to finishing the project. You are committing to one small, defined unit of effort. The brain accepts small, bounded commitments far more easily than open-ended ones because uncertainty itself is what triggers resistance. Cirillo did not just create a timer. He created a system that made starting logically smaller than your brain's threshold for resistance. Take the 5-minute rule, often credited to motivational researchers studying behavioral activation. The premise is almost insultingly simple. Commit to doing a task for just 5 minutes, that is all. But the mechanism is built on a well-documented psychological principle, Newton's first law applied to behavior. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. A task in motion tends to stay in motion. Once your brain crosses the threshold from inaction to action, the resistance that kept you frozen often disappears entirely. The 5-minute rule does not try to convince you the task is important. It tricks the avoidance response by shrinking the commitment until refusing it feels illogical. Take the Eisenhower Matrix, a framework attributed to President Dwight Eisenhower's own reflections on decision-making, later popularized by Stephen Covey. It sorts every task into 4 boxes based on urgency and importance. On its surface, it looks like a simple sorting tool, but what it actually does is remove ambiguity. Your brain spends enormous cognitive energy simply deciding what to do next, a phenomenon researchers call decision fatigue. The matrix eliminates that decision before it happens. You are not deciding what matters. You already decided in advance using cold logic instead of the shifting emotional weather of any given moment. Take Eat the Frog, a principle popularized by author Brian Tracy. The idea is to complete your most difficult task first before anything else. The logic is rooted in willpower depletion. Your capacity for self-control is highest early in the day and erodes with use. And take Getting Things Done, the system created by productivity consultant David Allen. Its core insight has almost nothing to do with motivation at all. Allen observed that an unrecorded task occupies mental space simply by existing as an open loop, a concept closely tied to the Zeigarnik effect, first documented by psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik in the 1920s. Incomplete tasks intrude on working memory until they are either finished or captured somewhere reliable. GTD does not ask you to feel ready. It asks you to offload the task from your mind onto paper, closing the loop your brain cannot stop tracking. Notice what every single one of these systems has in common. None of them ask you to want to work. None of them wait for inspiration to arrive. Each one was built by someone who understood, whether explicitly or instinctively, that motivation is unreliable, but logic is not. They built structures that made the productive choice the only one that made sense once you looked at the mechanism clearly. This is the same strategy those early strategic thinkers stumbled into, tens of thousands of years before psychology had a name. They could not force motivation into people who did not feel it. So they built systems, rituals, and structures around the people who needed a logical bridge instead of an emotional one. The colony survived not because everyone felt inspired, but because someone designed a path where the correct action required less resistance than the wrong one. And that is the real answer to why productivity culture exploded in the modern world.